Happy October! So I attempted to do Inktober this year for the first time. This is my day one Inktober spread, completed on the 1st of October 2024. And like many people, I was pretty disappointed by the prompt list this year. It was travel themed with almost every word related to traveling or hiking, like passport and binoculars and camera. And many words were synonyms of each other, like hike, trek, roam. For me, it was missing the fun October spooky element, as well as just like variety. So I decided to make my own prompt list based off a book that I believe every single human being should read. And since I can't force everyone to read the book, I figured it would be a cool way to bring attention or awareness to it because it is just so fantastic and thought-provoking and just extremely beneficial to our day-to-day lives. It's called Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown, and in it she does a deep dive into 87 different emotions and experiences that define what it means to be human. She and a team did years of research to compile 87 of the most quintessential human emotions or words that help describe other emotions. They defined them, discussed the triggers, causes, and effects of them, explained why some are harder to talk about than others, and gave thoughtful commentary on how to navigate some of those tougher emotions and conversations. And she helps the reader by providing a language to discuss a variety of emotions we feel to help us further our connections and relationships with other people. It is such an amazing book. The 87 emotions are a mix of positive, negative, even neutral emotions. And so for Inktober, I picked 31 of 87 of the emotions that I thought were, number one, interesting, and number two, could make a fun illustration. So here's a list I came up with. And y'all, I edited this in Canva and I felt like a graphic designer for real. So day one emotion is anxiety. The emotions in this book are broken apart in chapters. Chapter 1 is places we go when things are uncertain or too much. And on my prompt list, I kept the words in order of the chapters. So the first 3 words on my prompt list are from this chapter and this theme. And anxiety was such a good, strong emotion to start with because I feel like in the last few years, I feel and experience more social anxiety and probably just general anxiety than I'm used to and that I ever did before. And it's something that I'm aware of and have been actively working to combat. It's an emotion that I know logically is pretty useless and avoidable, but in reality, certain levels of anxiety can feel uncontrollable. And the real challenge of this Inktober emotions list that I discovered as I started drawing all these emotions is the first visual that comes to mind is often too simple and straightforward and could easily be confused for a different emotion. Like a drawing of someone looking distraught or downcast could be anxiety or sadness, anguish, grief. On a surface level, our emotions can be misinterpreted or simplified in so many ways, and I feel like that's the power of this book. Brené Brown dives into such a deeper explanation and breakdown of exactly what each emotion is, different examples or scenarios where we feel it, and she even explains the dichotomy and differences in commonly confused emotions like envy and jealousy. I'll get into those later in the challenge. So the challenge that she faced in researching and writing this book was something that I felt and wanted to honor in the way that I illustrated these complex emotions, and I'm going to be talking through my full creative process along the way. So now about anxiety. Anxiety is a full body experience. We think it's just a mental emotion, but we have physical reactions to our anxiety. A restless mind, headache, a pit in your stomach, and even a spike in blood pressure. In Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown defines anxiety as escalating loss of control, worst case scenario thinking, and total uncertainty. And from the amazing movie Inside Out, anxiety says fear protects her from the scary stuff she can see, and anxiety protects her from the scary stuff she can't see. For anxiety, first thought might have been someone looking stressed, but anxiety is deeper than stress. I get stressed from work, but my workload doesn't necessarily give me anxiety. So I had to dig deeper. What does anxiety feel like? What causes it? And how do I feel when I'm in that moment? It's a combination of stress and worry about what the future may hold. Fear lives in the present and anxiety lives in the future. So when I feel anxious, I feel like I am being overtaken, overwhelmed, consumed by unhealthy, unhelpful, or stressful thoughts. You know when you're stressed and you put your hands on your head? I feel like that, but like tenfold. Like hands are grabbing my head, maybe even dragging me down. I don't know if they're even my hands or someone else's hands at this point. Maybe just the world's hands are overwhelming me. Like I can't move forward or focus on anything else, enjoy anything else because I feel so consumed of fear of the future or this situation. And of course, like any emotion, there are different levels to it. Some anxiety is slight, some anxiety is extremely intense, but I wanted to illustrate what more intense anxiety feels like. I drew white eyes, small pupils, because you're straining, trying to peer into the future or overwhelmed with a storm of thoughts. Even the line work I used, I feel represented a level of chaos. Shoot, I even had a little anxiety about this challenge before I started because I'm a painter. I don't use ink like this. This isn't my comfortable or even known medium. And matter of fact, the one and only time I've ever used ink in a bottle, like with a brush, was in high school where I took art as an elective, and the project was to draw hands using ink in a bottle and with a brush. And my artwork, y'all, was so bad and so unsalvageable that my art teacher had me paint over it with acrylic paint. I was the one and only person in the class whose art turned out so bad that I had to literally toss the assignment and the assigned medium away just to salvage the picture. So, of course, with that in mind, going into my first Inktober challenge, especially one with such a complex prompt list that I, of course, gave myself and made difficult for myself, I felt a bit worried and anxious about how it was going to turn out. But generally, what I do to combat my anxiety is I tell myself, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen? Maybe I'm going somewhere where someone or some people that don't like me are going to be there, or maybe where I simply don't know anyone at all and I feel social anxiety. Worst case scenario, if I am that uncomfortable, or if you are that uncomfortable and you're in that scenario, you leave. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a great conversation with the people you do connect with, and you're going to have a great or at least a decent time. We overinflate things so much in our minds. People are not judging us or do not hate us as much as we think. And I feel anxiety when I make content in public, and I remind myself that we think people care about us and pay more attention to us so much more than they really do. People are so consumed by their own thoughts and their own lives that they don't notice or care about what we have going on. And the rare times when I get weird stares when I'm doing content or anything new in public, guess what? I don't know these people and I will never see them again. Their judgment makes no difference in my life unless I let it stop me from accomplishing the thing that I set out to do. I oftentimes get out of my comfort zone and put myself in situations where I'm forced to face my anxiety just to show myself that it's not as bad as my mind tells me, and to grow a bit as a person and to grow my confidence and just force myself out of my comfort zone. So let's dive a little deeper. I recently quit my stable 6-figure engineering job where I've been working for over 6 years and spent 4 years getting my civil engineering degree. So talk about anxiety, that leap of faith. I had so much anxiety about that decision, and it was admittedly a huge decision. So instead of just diving into it, of course I made a plan and thought it through thoroughly and made a pros versus cons list. When you're faced with a decision that brings you anxiety, make a pros versus cons list. Pro, if I pursue art full time, I can spend every day doing my passion. I can actually see where my talent and my hustle can take me and my ambitions can take me, as opposed to dying with that regret of what if. And I can possibly be more successful than I am now and make more money than I ever could have imagined in my engineering career. Or I could make less money but have more freedom with my time, which was a compromise I was very happy to take. And the cons, of course, with a decision like that are lack of stability, loss of consistent income, having to grow your own business from the ground up, and all of the risk and responsibility that comes with that. And then after you make your pros versus cons list, think about the worst case scenario and what would actually realistically happen. Not what your anxiety tells you, but logically. What is the logical worst case scenario? Now, going back to my scenario, if I fail miserably as an artist and don't sell one painting, not even one painting, my hopes and pride and dreams will feel pretty crushed. But realistically, I'll just go back to work. I'll just go back to saving money with a stable income. I won't lose my house or end up on the streets. I'll at least get a part-time job before it gets to that point. The worst case scenario is literally going back to what I'm doing now with maybe less in my savings account than I had before. Most decisions are not as undoable as we think. So when you think about your worst case scenario, think about, is that a scenario and risk that you can live with? And if yes, proceed. Are you anxious about working out around other people in the gym? Guess what? They're also working out, and they are not there to find someone to watch and laugh at. Many of them actually probably feel the same fears that you do. Or even if worst case scenario, what if someone laughs at you while you are trying your hardest in the gym? First of all, that person would be like a piece of crap, but let's just say that happens. You may feel embarrassment in that moment, but is that embarrassment worth you not hitting your fitness goals and your health goals? Are you going to let a hypothetical situation that's probably never even happened to you keep you from moving forward? So Atlas of the Heart talks about how we often cope with anxiety with worry or avoidance. But worry can become all-consuming, especially if we think worry is uncontrollable, so we don't put in any effort to even attempt to stop worrying. But worry is controllable, and avoidance doesn't resolve anything. One quote from Atlas of the Heart by psychologist Dr. Lerner is, "Avoidance will make you feel less vulnerable in the short run, but it will never make you less afraid." With anxiety, change the things you can control and let go and accept the things you can't. Whatever is waiting for me in the future will be there when I get there, but if I spend all of my time worrying and overthinking about that now, I miss out on so many great things in the moment. One thing I've learned about my anxiety is things are so rarely as bad as I think that they will be. Think about the last few things you were truly anxious about. How did those scenarios play out? Oftentimes, the anxiety itself is worse than the actual event or conclusion of whatever we were so anxious about. Another interesting thing from the book is anxiety and excitement feel the same. Thinking about the future, pounding heart, butterflies, feeling fidgety, but how we interpret and label those feelings help determine how we experience them. Researchers found that in certain scenarios, reframing the feelings of anxiety as excitement helped the mind respond more positively. And our minds are so powerful. Our brains will believe what we tell it and what we feed it, especially if we feed it positive thinking constantly. So a tip was try reframing thoughts and statements as I'm anxious about my first day at my new job to I'm excited about my first day at my new job. Maybe a little nervous, sure, but I'm excited to see how it goes. And you don't have to tell yourself that the best case scenario will happen, but believing in a good case scenario is a pretty realistic and good start. And prepare for the things you can. Prepare for your first day at your new job. Prepare for that public speaking event by practicing. Prepare for going into social situations by trying to relax yourself and feeding your mind positive thoughts beforehand. Change and prepare for what you can and let go of the things that you can't. And realize that we all live such an imperfect life. No one is living a perfect life. We all mess up. We all have embarrassing moments. We all do things that we regret because that is what it means to be human. Everyone experiences these things, and we are far more critical with ourselves than the judgment that we believe people are dropping on us. So I don't know if this helps you, but when I feel anxious, I literally tell myself all the time, this really doesn't matter. And I make a list in my head of all the reasons why it doesn't matter and all of the ways I will survive the worst case scenario. And then I am okay, or know at least that I will be okay no matter what. Ultimately, our anxiety needs to be acknowledged and understood. And yes, this illustration was inspired by My Hero Academia. If you know, you know. I was binge watching that anime while I was drawing this picture. So yeah, here's a reveal. Tell me what you think of the prompt list and does your anxiety feel like this drawing? And stay tuned for some other emotions in this challenge. Bye.